After losing his UK security appeal, did Prince Harry just admit in his statement that the American taxpayer is fully funding his and Meghan Markle's security in the States? Well, I brought on Washington, D.C. insider and your favourite D.C. lawyer, John Witherspoon, to explain what's really going on. Hey up everyone, it's me, Stef The Alter Nerd, your nerdy alternative, and welcome to the Dose of the Daily Nerd, where I break down the royal news and gossip of the day that's pretty much caught me eye. And oh my goodness, yes, let's jump into it with your favourite DC lawyer and Washington DC insider himself, Mr. John Witherspoon. Thank you so much for joining me on this video. How you doing, mate?
I'm good, Steph. How are you?
I'm not doing too bad, completely refreshed and ready to go with this one because, yeah, Prince Harry, did he just make a shocking admission in his statement that the American taxpayers are footing his security bill? Now, before we get on to John Witherspoon's take on all of this, let me just explain to you why I'm asking this question in the first place. And it comes from Hazard's own statement himself. This is the bit in red that I just want to direct your attention to. He says, quote, "This process has only ever been about ensuring my safety and that of my immediate family when we are in the United Kingdom, so that we may safely visit my home country with the same level of security that other governments deem necessary for our protection. My ask has been simple, that the standard protocols for security and risk assessments be applied to me in the same way they are to others, including people who have never carried out any public functions on behalf of the state." Now, in particular, he says that he's only asking for the same security that other governments in other countries have deemed necessary for their protection. Now, a lot of people are reading this and thinking, hang on a minute, has Hazard just admitted that when he's in America, the American taxpayers are footing his and Meg's security bill? And it does seem that way on paper, on the surface of it all. Just look at their visit to New York City last month that was reported in the news. Meghan Markle blasted for excessive and absolutely abnormal security entourage. She was arriving and seeing a New York City Broadway show with a 4-car motorcade and an NYPD escort. Furthermore, a couple of days later, Prince Harry and Meghan were in New York City again for that Time 100 Summit situation. And again, the 4-car motorcade, the New York Police Department being there protecting them. And so you look at these articles right here, only recently from last month. You see what he says specifically in this statement here. And I'm arriving to a question, John. Did Hazard just admit that the American taxpayers are footing his and Meg's security bill when they're in the United States? Now, you and I, we've been chatting behind the scenes on this, and so, yeah, the floor is yours, my friend. What is going on? Can you explain to the audience? Yeah, what's going on?
Well, I cannot provide a definitive answer. I'll start off by saying that, but I think I can provide some insights. And I think we need to break down the question into a couple of additional pieces. He does not specify what other countries he's talking about when he is referring to the security that the protective services provide when he travels outside of the UK. Let's remember, they not only live in the United States, as she's obviously a citizen, he's a resident of California, but they have also recently been to Nigeria. He's been to the Ukraine. The two of them have also been down visiting in Colombia. And I think people probably will recall that when they were in Colombia, they were famously followed around by someone who was carrying a bulletproof shield behind them when they walked around. And I think that probably was a function of the level of danger that they might have been exposed to when they were in a country like Colombia, where there's obviously a heightened level of criminal activity and a lot of drug activity with cartels and so on and so forth. So with that all as background, let me just point out that there are a couple of different levels of security or different types of security that you can avail yourself of when you're in the United States and you consider that you're at some risk and you want to have some protection around you. One thing to know in the United States, unlike the UK, is that private individuals can carry firearms. You need, in California, I believe it's called a CCW. It has a different term for it in different states, but basically it is permission from the state of California to carry a concealed weapon. If you are, say, a retired police officer, or you are an active duty police officer, actually, it would not apply to an active duty police officer because even when they're off duty, sometimes they're required to carry a weapon. But let's say you're a retired police officer, or you are a private security guard in California, and you want to provide armed security, you can do that, provided that you have the appropriate license as a security guard, and then you also need a concealed carry permit to keep a weapon with you. I would guess that that is the type of security that Harry and Meghan have out at Montecito. And the reason I kind of say that is because knowing that that type of security is available, the state of California or Santa Barbara County Sheriff's Department or whatever the local law enforcement agency is, or even United States Secret Service, they're going to say, look, you've got money and you have these private security guards that are available to you. So we're not going to go to the time and trouble to protect you with public security or police officials at taxpayer expense, because that just would not make a lot of sense. And the local government would not want to be on the hook for paying for those costs. I think the situation, and by the way, I say this with some degree of inside knowledge. I know a retired state police officer in Michigan who was the head of security, or he may still be the head of security at a large piece of property owned by Madonna. And that's exactly what I've just described is exactly what the situation is at Madonna's property. She has the means to pay for security. She deems it an appropriate thing to spend money on, and there are people that are available to take care of her security needs. So problem kind of solved. However, when you get into a situation like Harry and Meghan going to New York City, things change slightly. First of all, when they went to the Time 100 event, it was known in advance that they were going to be there. So somebody who might want to cause trouble for them would probably have been able to see, oh, you know, Harry and Meghan are going to be here and they're going to be at a certain venue. And I'm guessing that they'll probably get out of their vehicles on the sidewalk and they'll have to travel in that neighborhood and so forth. So it's a little bit of a different scenario. And for that reason, I can understand that the city of New York Police Department, NYPD, might have said, you know what, this is a little bit of a different situation. And because of these risks that are in place, because of the knowledge of Harry and Meghan's visit, we're going to provide a certain level of police protection for them. We may provide some uniformed officers. We may provide a marked police vehicle and those types of things. And then it's up to Harry and Meghan to decide, okay, how many Cadillac Escalades do we want to have? Large SUVs to include in this convoy. That's what I'm guessing is taking place. By contrast, let's also think about the situation where Meghan showed up in New York and she went to a Broadway play. This goes back a couple of weeks. I would guess that in that case, she had that infamous 4-car entourage, and I would guess that either one of two things happened. Either that was not accompanied by any on-duty police officers, or she paid some off-duty police officers to moonlight, basically, and provide either uniformed or plainclothes security, or she just used private security. You know, when I say private security, I mean people who have a security license, security guard's license. They may not be authorized to carry a firearm. The types of people that you would see, for instance, if you were in a shopping mall. So those are, I think, what the scenarios are. And as you can probably conclude, the extent of taxpayer-funded security for Harry and Meghan is probably very limited and probably very unique, depending on a specific set of circumstances that might warrant active on-duty police officers in marked vehicles to provide some level of protection. But I think in the absence of a circumstance like that, in other words, if Meghan just wants to go to a play, if there is security needed at Montecito, then I think they're kind of on their own.
So to me, it seems like when they are in America, and let's say they do go to New York City and they're there with their motorcade of security and NYPD, blah, 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 that it's not potentially, you know, the American taxpayers that foot in this bill, that they are paying for it themselves using NYPD officers that are off duty, that are, like you are saying, moonlighting. But it's kind of like this Machiavellian way of Hazza and Megxie trying to present to the world that they are getting government protection, blah, 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 when in reality, they're not. They are actually paying it for themselves rather, you know, than the taxpayers having to fund it. And for them to try and have, let's say, this image in the world of, you know, the American taxpayers footing the security bill, because look at all the NYPD cars and officers when they go to New York City, this, that, and the other. It would have helped them potentially in Harry's court case. You know, look at the NYPD protecting me, this, that, and the other. Why aren't the UK doing it? Blah, blah, blah. I'm just really, really glad that the appeal court saw through Hazza and dismissed his appeal and told him, piss off, you cowbag, you're not going any further. I mean, before we go, just to ask, what was your take on the announcement that his appeal was dismissed? Do you think it was the right thing, bad thing? What did you think when you heard about it?
Well, there are, I think it was an uphill fight. And I think everybody knew it was going to be an uphill fight, with the exception of Harry, and I'll speak to that in just a second. But I think the judge made very clear what should be the main takeaway for everybody. He said, there are some compelling arguments here. And there are some of them are legal, potentially, and some of them are practical, and some of them are emotional. But in the end, the court has to deliver a decision within the four corners of the law. And if the law does not allow the court to rule in a way that a plaintiff like Harry would like, then they don't have any choice. Their hands are tied. And that's effectively what the judge said. He's like, look, I feel your pain. You've made some good arguments. I get it. This is very important to you. But the law says X, Y, Z. And in the absence of you addressing one of those X, Y, and Z types of components, then we really can't help you. Now, the thing that I thought was ironic in the BBC interview was that Harry, I thought, with incredible audacity, said, I wish someone had told me ahead of time that this was not likely to succeed. That is mind-blowing. Every news outlet in the world and every YouTube channel in the world and every person walking down the street could have told him that this was not likely to be a winning case. And yet he chose at great expense and at the expense of the court's time and at the expense of the lawyers for the UK government for their time and his own lawyer's time, he chose to forge ahead. And his lawyer would have carried the case forward only with his encouragement and his approval. So for him to say, oh, I got whiplash on this because I didn't see this coming, that is absolutely remarkable. And then for him, as we were talking about a few minutes ago, Steph, as well, I think it was a mistake, a tactical mistake for Harry to immediately pop onto the BBC and start complaining about everything that he felt was a grievance. I think he would have represented himself much better if he had waited a day or two or three before he sat down with the TV crew and a reporter to give his side of the story, because the way he did it, it makes it look like it was very knee-jerk. He did not take the time or effort to do any sort of reflection on the nuances and the ramifications of the court decision. And I think that was a huge mistake as far as his public image was concerned, because really what it said to people, I think, was, I've had a preconceived notion of right and wrong all along. I don't care what the court said. The court didn't agree with me, so therefore they must be wrong. And I still have this list of grievances. And I think some people have parsed out his interview, and it's a list of, I think, 5, 6, or 7 different grievances, depending on who you talk to and listen to. It's really remarkable. One other thing that some people have pointed out as well is that apparently this interview was supposed to be a 10-minute interview. It turned into a 30-minute interview. And the implication of that to a lot of people is he didn't have a press person, he didn't have a PR person who was advising him on any of this. He didn't have somebody in the room that said, you know what, it's been 10 minutes, we got to cut this off. No, he just went on and on and on and on. And every time he answered another question or made a statement, he made himself look worse and worse and worse. You know, there's been all this talk about risk assessment and his security and so forth. I will give Harry a free risk assessment, and I'm not doing this with my lawyering hat on. This is just with my life experience risk assessment. My risk assessment for Harry is there is an enormous risk every time you get near a television camera and a microphone. That is my risk assessment for Prince Harry. He should keep quiet. And if I was his friend, if I was an acquaintance of him, that is what I would tell him. That is the best advice I can give. I think it's the best advice anybody can give. You should put your head down, stay off the television, stay out of the newspapers, and get on with the life that you purportedly wanted to undertake when you left the UK to begin with. All of these problems, I think, to a large extent, would evaporate and no one would care. So that's my risk assessment.
In other words, to translate it to Yorkshire, with what John Witherspoon just said, Hazza, shut the hell up. Shut up now. Stay quiet. Be gone. Stay gone. Fade into irrelevance. Be the private individual that you said you always wanted to be when you left the royal family. And again, shut the F up, because it's doing you no favors whatsoever. You should really, learn from past mistakes. Trying to play the victim every single time has only gone one way. Backlash. It's never been successful. And it brings to mind, actually, a very well-known saying that one kind of indicator of madness is doing the same thing over and over and over again, expecting a different result each and every time, but getting the same result each and every time. And so,
yes,
yeah.
And you're absolutely right, Steph. And I'll just add in one other thing. I have been very surprised at the number of people in the aftermath of that BBC interview, the number of people who have said, Harry has rounded the bend or gone over the falls or whatever it is. And even if you look around at the other Megxit YouTube channels, the thumbnails that people have put up about past the point of no return, I think I saw, and irredeemable or something somebody else put up, if I recall correctly. And that's a change. as far as public perception of Harry. I think in a lot of people's minds, he really has crossed a line that he cannot cross back over. And this notion of, oh, I would like to have reconciliation, and the fact that I'm not speaking to my father is totally my father's fault. I mean, it's really remarkable, and nobody can really get their head around it. And I think that's why people are saying, you know, look, this cannot be fixed at this point going forward.
He's done at this point. He's absolutely done. Needs to check himself into the nearest insane asylum as soon as possible. With that being said, you guys, if you appreciated this video and you want more, and of course you want more, why wouldn't you? Then make sure on your way out, if you haven't done so already, you subscribe to join our Alter Nerd tribe. Like, share, comment down below your opinion, conspiracy theory, whatever. Let's put it this way. If there was a choice for all you American alter nerds out there to use some of your taxpayer money to foot Hazza and Meg's security bill, would you be happy to do that or not? Let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. If you appreciated what John Witherspoon was saying, and of course you did, then do make sure you follow him over on Instagram at WitherspoonDC. If you've got any questions about what he said today, or questions about any other videos that he's appeared on this channel, then this is the place, the only place where you're able to contact him with the questions. He may not be able to answer all your questions, but again, it's a way to contact him if you do want to. With that being said, thank you so much for tuning into this video. I appreciate all your faces, and until the next time, you guys, laters.